everybody, and welcome back to the Drive Pink Dialogue. Today, we're talking about Inter Miami's quest to repeat in 2026, and it all starts with a couple roster decisions. I'm your host, Scotty. I'm here with my co-host, Saur. And before I ask you how you're doing, I just want to know, are you ready for a decision collision? Because that's what we got on deck tonight. How you feeling, my man?
I still want to relax and enjoy the MLS Cup. We've been MLS champions for 2 days. I want my peace and quiet and reminiscence for another few days. But I know it's crunch part of the season. The decisions are upon us. And as much as I love talking about transfers, I love talking about rumors, this is a pressure discussion for me because we're going to talk about players and their options and what's going to happen. And it's always interesting to speculate, but knowing this club, they're going to do exactly the opposite of what we think is going to happen. So it's fun, but it's also nerve-wracking. But we're still champions, and it's fun to do it while we have won the trophy and not to think about, oh, our season was a disappointment and all of that. So this is good. This is great. I enjoy it. 3 days back-to-back, baby. How are you doing?
I feel good, but I think you make a great point. It has been 48 hours since Inter Miami won the MLS Cup. I would love to still spend another 2 weeks talking about the best moments of the playoffs, reliving the playoff run, best moments of the season, talking about all these legacy moments. Like, I would rather do that, but...
And we will, eventually.
Correct. But time and circumstance dictate we have a couple other conversations in the immediate aftermath of the MLS Cup final. So yesterday we talked about the game. We celebrated the championship. Today we're looking forward to 2026 because according to MLS roster rules, Inter Miami had to submit their roster decisions yesterday. And they did. We got confirmation that the two teams in the MLS Cup final, both Vancouver and Inter Miami, reported to the league their roster decisions, so they are made. What they did not do is publicly announce them, either Vancouver or Inter Miami. So the decisions have been made. We don't know what they are. We're going to talk about them as if they haven't been made because we don't know what they are, but they are finalized. So just for anyone wondering, the deadline to submit them to the league, yesterday. The deadline to announce them to the world, there is no deadline. So we have no idea when we're actually going to find out, but that's not going to stop us from talking about it. So, Saur, before we get started, do you have any questions about the rules, about how this all works, that you think may clarify or help us clarify to everyone else this process?
I'm trying to figure this out because, listen, this is a speculative episode. For all we know, tomorrow we're going to do one where we have the roster decisions in our hands. But the way Inter Miami has operated previously, I think last season it took them 7 days to publicly announce what the decisions were, and all of us were sitting on our hands. So I think it's important to speculate. But I think you should just, before we go to each player, I think we just need to contextualize their contract situation and give a background of where they stand in terms of what their contract is, where they're going to be going into next season, and what options Inter Miami has with those players. But I guess as long as we do that, I think it should be fairly straightforward for each player that we plan to discuss tonight.
Yeah, so let's set the table with what is under contract for next season. Now, if we don't include the young kids that are on first-team contracts but that haven't really established themselves as first-team players, Inter Miami only has 10 players under contract for next season as of this moment. That is Lionel Messi, the 1 DP, Matteo Silvetti, Talasco Segovia, and Toto Aviles as the U22s, Maxi Falcone and Gonzalo Lujan as TAM-level players, Oscar Ustari, whose contract we don't know, Yannick Bright and Noah Allen, who also signed new contracts this year, and we haven't gotten the details on them yet because they just signed them recently. All three of those guys under contract. And then the last one is David Ruiz, who we didn't see much of this year, but also has the new contract. So those are the 10 players under contract for next season. And then Santi Morales, Israel Boatwright, and Tyler Hall, the young kids who haven't fully broken out into the first team yet. As Sean mentions in the chat, Benjamin Kramaski also under contract. He's on loan. Not going to be a big part of our conversation because he's on loan. And by the way, he got his first start for Parma, I think, on Friday. So congratulations to him. And then Rodrigo de Paul, who we will talk about, technically not under contract for next season as of this moment. So 10 players, 1 goalkeeper, 4 defenders, 3 midfielders, 2 attackers, plus the 3 kids. That's a lot of turnover. 26 players on the roster as of the game on Saturday. 13 of them not guaranteed to be back. And I think for a lot of them, we're going to see not likely in the future. 2 players that are obviously not in the future, Jordi Alba, Sergio Busquets. Technically, I guess Alba still under contract. But Jordi Alba, Sergio Busquets retiring. So congratulations. We will talk about them a lot when we reminisce about the history of Inter Miami over the next decade. But for this purpose, it's over. They're done. Take their name off and throw it in the garbage bin because they're not going to be a part of the 2026 roster or team.
Sergio Busquets, I agree with. Jordi Alba, not so much. You know why? Because he's still under contract. And I will be surprised if he rips apart his retirement contract and just throws it away and comes back. Because I have seen players come back from retirement and play for the club again. So never say never. But I think 99.9% he's gone. So yes, I think that's it for the 2 of them. They've had the best finale ever to their professional careers. What a way to go out by winning a trophy. And I think we as a club have to start moving on from them. But that doesn't mean that we can't reminisce from time to time and remember what they contributed to the club. So Jordi Alba, Sergio Busquets, thank you for everything. Let's bring their replacements in.
Yeah, I should also mention, we're not going to talk a lot about replacements in this episode, so I will just briefly summarize where we think the club is at. There's a right back from Argentina named Facundo Mura, who we think we're going to sign as a free agent. Free agent left back named Sergio Reguilon, who's Spanish and has played in the Premier League, that we think they're going to sign as a free agent in the next couple weeks. There's a goalkeeper down in Argentina named Guido Herrera that they are apparently in conversations with. And then we've heard that the DP spot is something they want to fill with a high-level number 9. That's not going to be a big part of the conversation tonight because we want to focus on the decisions and what we would do and what we think the club's going to do. But I will just mention that, and maybe we will refer to it as context for these decisions. So let's keep that all in mind. And I want to start with the team options because I think those are the easiest to talk about. These are players that were under contract, and that if Inter Miami wants to keep them, all they have to do is activate the team option. So the player will get whatever contract they agreed to, or they'll be set free as free agents. First one, Will Yarbrough, the goalkeeper. We did not see him at any point this season. I don't even know how many times he was even number 2 choice, like as the backup. Definitely made the bench a fair number of times, but I almost think it doesn't make sense to accept the option before you know what your goalkeeper situation is going to look like. And so I would expect them to decline it and then call him in middle of January and say, hey, we kind of want you back if that's how things go. But for right now, I think they should decline it because he or someone of his caliber and price will certainly be available at the end of January if you feel like you still need to add a depth piece at the goalkeeping position. So Will Yarbrough, I think, is a decline.
I completely agree with you. For me, he is not going to be more than a 3rd choice goalkeeper. Second choice, I highly doubt it, but the point that you made is actually spot on. In case you need to make a decision about the goalkeeping position later on, you understand who your number 1 goalkeeper is, what the situation with your goalkeeping department looks like. And then in January, you can go and get either Will Yarbrough or someone with the similar sort of pay package, salary demands, all of that. I don't think this is one that Inter Miami is going to struggle to fulfill. He doesn't bring anything to the table that everyone else, that you can't replace with somebody else. So for all intents and purposes, it wouldn't make sense for Inter Miami to accept this buy option or this option. And it makes sense for them to let this one go.
Hopefully they learn their lesson because as I mentioned with players under contract, Oscar Stadi is under contract because they gave him an extra year
Exactly.
back in April, and they didn't need to do that. If we were right now talking about team options with Oscar Stadi and he didn't already have a guaranteed contract for next year, I don't think they would make the same decision right now. So you don't have to make a decision before you shouldn't make a decision before you have to. I think,
Exactly.
especially when you're talking about depth choices, especially when you're talking about goalkeepers, especially when you're not talking about your stars and the key players, and like those all come last. And so I do hope they learn their lesson with the Ustadi contract to just relax. We saw last preseason there was a different veteran American goalkeeper that they brought in during the preseason to just be a guy around. That person will exist whether it's Will Yarbrough or not come January 30th or February 18th or whatever. So no need to lock yourself into this now. I think you decline it.
I completely agree with you. I think the one point I do want to make is last time Inter Miami sort of put themselves in a corner by signing Ustari, and you mentioned this. With Will Yarbrough, he's the third choice. You can't sign your third choice before you even know who your first choice is going to be. So I think the primary responsibility that the club has is to finalize the first choice goalkeeping situation, understand whether they want to keep Rocco Rios Nova as the number one or bring in somebody else. And if that's the case, once they resolve that, they can turn to Will Yarbrough and finalize his future with this club, if at all. But before that, it wouldn't make sense to to determine it already.
Yeah, and we'll get back to the goalkeeping situation here in a little bit, but let's move to the next one. I think less conversation to be had. It's Fafa Picault. Listen, he came to Miami. He got the big warm greeting for 7 minutes in the opener, and everyone felt great about it. And then he got a hamstring injury, and it never felt like he was a part of the team again. Early on, he had some big moments, got a goal against Atlanta, but this is a veteran. This is a guy who's been a DP in this league. And he gets his medal. Like, he's going to get a ring, so congratulations on the ring. But clearly this is not a guy Javier Mascherano enjoys or thinks is a good fit for his system or whatever. So for his sake, he's a good player that will find a home in this league. I don't think there's any reason to bring him back next year.
I feel like he's a bit hard done because if Javier Mascherano understood how to use Fafa Fico as a player, this player could have contributed so much. I would have loved to see Fafa in the final system that we deployed in the playoffs because I feel like there's almost that suited Fafa style a lot more. But the fact that the coach didn't trust him, the players around him didn't look like they trusted him as much. He did seem to enjoy the celebrations. The environment around was fine, but I don't think there's a fixed place for Fafa Pico under Javier Mascherano's system. And for that reason, I think he's going to be let go. I had big hopes for this player. I thought he'd be a starter for this Inter Miami team at some point in the season. But the way this team has evolved, I don't think he fits into the system. I don't think he is utilized well enough. And knowing Javier Mascherano and how he trusts only certain players, I don't think Fafa is going to enjoy being in this team next year. So I think he'll be fine.
Like, it's the right thing to do is to let him go
for both sides.
Pursue somewhere else. Yeah. So that's two players, I think, gone. Leave the door open for Will Yarbrough, maybe, at the end of the offseason. But two players, two declinations. And I think we move on to the purchase options. These are 5 players who are on loan, and the loans have a purchase option attached. Now, we should add the context that all 5 of these players will expect a certain salary that we would expect to be greater than what they earned in 2025 when they were on the previous contract. 2, they will have a transfer fee involved in their purchase, which means how they fit within the cap matters and is more difficult. If you sign a guy as a free agent, it's just his salary. But if you pay a transfer fee for him, that is also amortized and makes it more difficult to fill out the rest of your roster with quality players. So keep that in mind. Some of these guys will have to be either DPs or U22s, et cetera. So that will be a part of this conversation. But Inter Miami has the option to purchase if they decide. Let's start with Rodrigo de Paul. I don't think this is it's a no-brainer. They're going to accept it. That was sort of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge with Atletico Madrid as part of this deal. It never would have happened if they didn't sort of have an understanding that they would accept this. It's $17.5 million. They already have an agreement for salary with Rodrigo de Paul. He's going to get it. They're going to accept it. They're going to pay the $17 million. They're going to give Rodrigo de Paul $8 million a year to be a DP. Just what I'm about to say is so nitty gritty, it doesn't matter. Sean's saying that it's a mandatory loan. It technically cannot be a mandatory loan with, I'm sorry, a mandatory purchase option within the MLS roster rules. So it had to be in some way optional. But again, it is wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We are going to activate this. So I think, you just pencil in Rodrigo de Paul in the midfield and as a DP for next year. And I think that's sort of the end of the conversation.
Just at the top, the purchase option bucket, I think, is the most interesting for me, because here there's a conversation about not just what the club is going to do, but what they should do. Now, for Rodrigo de Paul, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that he will be coming back. Inter Miami is going to buy him. But I saw some conversations on Twitter, which I thought were very interesting, that said, yes, he is going to come back, no doubt. But should Inter Miami bring him back, given how expensive he is and what his impact on this team has been? And I think with the performances that he's had in the playoffs and his impact in the final, given that Messi is already losing two of his best mates and Rodrigo de Paul is probably the only best mate that he's left in the team, I think overall for the health of the team itself, RDP does it. And so Okti mentions in the chat that RDP earned it. I would agree. I think he put in a worthy performance in the last few games in the playoffs and helped Inter Miami win that cup. So you do bring him back. But there's a universe in which we could entertain a possibility where Inter Miami shouldn't bring him back. I don't know if you want to have that conversation yet, but just wanted to put it out there.
Here's what I will say. $17 million would be almost double the most expensive midfielder in the history of the league. You would expect him to come in and be guaranteed the best midfielder in the MLS. And I don't know if that's actually what you're going to get. And especially, he's going to be one of the 5 highest paid players in the league in terms of his salary. So it is a ton of money. So like if it's just some random midfielder, and this was a real discussion, maybe we could have that conversation. But it's Messi's friend. He is sort of a world champion, and you didn't do this with River Plate or, Panathinaikos. You did this with Atletico Madrid, and you want to keep that relationship. So it's like, it is a no-brainer because he's Rodrigo de Paul. Yeah. I can understand what you mean by, is the price tag really worth it? Is he the best midfielder in the MLS, period, hands down, no doubt about it? I understand the question, but I think there are more interesting conversations we have to have, so I'm just going to leave it at they're going to do it, and that's fine.
Completely agree. Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what are the easiest ones to go to next. So I'll start with Chelo Weigand. I think you let him go back to Boca Juniors.
Yeah, I think he's gone. At the start of Javier Mascherano's tenure, I think Chelo Weigand was the number one choice at right back. Javier Mascherano didn't sign him, and he had the privilege, or at least the excuse, of dropping him when the performances weren't up to the mark. And very soon, Ian Frey displaced him as the number one choice at right back. I think that's it. Chelo Weigand has had a good 2 years. He's done for this club what was required of him. I think he was overpaid a little, just based on the performances that he put in. And he's clearly fine. And I had to eat my words when I said best right back in the league. But
to be fair,
I jinxed him, and it's my fault. So
I have let you embarrass yourself by saying that you said it was the best right back in the history of the league. You did say he was the best right back in Inter Miami history, which is actually not as egregious of a statement.
That's true.
So I will give you credit for that now that this is probably the last time we'll talk about him. He's fine. I think if it wasn't for us having Ian Frey and a player that we wanted to see played above Chelo, I think we would be fine with Chelo. But they have, and I mentioned this earlier, they have a right back from Argentina that is going to seemingly about to sign and come in for next season. And I think he takes the wage cap that Chelo was getting. I'm not sure Chelo was worth the amount of money he was being paid. So, I think they've already replaced Cello, and so I think it's just a no.
Yeah.
Good luck to him. He's going to go back to Boca Juniors, and I would assume find a different move. Maybe he ends up in Atlanta with Tata Martino. Who knows? But he gets his MLS Cup. He helped us win a Supporter Shield. So shake hands and wish him luck.
Completely agree.
Alan Obondo, one of the most what if players we will have, because they're not going to sign him. He is a really well thought of young striker prospect from Ecuador, 19, had been linked to places in Europe, including Atletico Madrid. The purchase option, I think, is like $5 million. So that would make him a U22 DP. And as we start to talk about how this affects the cap and your roster allocation, like that is important. He would have to be a U22 DP. I don't particularly think Alan Obondo had a great time, like on a personal level. Certainly didn't get the playing time or professional development that he would have wanted. I know people said he was always injured, but there was actually plenty of opportunity to play him where he didn't get playing time. So I think you let him go. I guess the only caveat to this question is Luis Suarez doesn't seem like he's going to come back, so maybe there's a bigger role for him. But like I still think you let him go, and I am sad that it didn't work out because I was really excited about this transfer, and I hope he does well moving forward. That's where I'm at.
Are we the problem? Did we hype him up too much? Was he never meant to be that player?
He was fine when he played. He looked fine when he was playing. I think
he got a goal on his second start or second outing.
His first start. First start, he scored a goal. He played behind Luis Suarez, and Suarez didn't come off the field. And unlike last year, where Suarez, Busquets, Alba and Messi would have games where they wouldn't play, or they would come on in the 60th minute, and Tata would rotate those guys. That just never happened this season with any of them. And so at left back, if Jordi Alba was healthy, he played 90 minutes every game. If Luis Suarez was healthy, I know we feel differently because we haven't seen this in 4 weeks, but for the first 98% of the season, Luis Suarez, if he was healthy, he played. So I think it was just there was no minutes for him, and Javier Mascherano didn't feel like it was really important to get him opportunities. And then you had some injuries in the meantime, but like it just didn't work out. But I don't think that means he's a bad player.
No, absolutely. And I think the biggest collateral damage of Javier Mascherano not able to figure out who his best starting 11 for the entirety of the season is Obondo, because it felt like we had a good run of form and you had to keep putting your best players on the pitch to get those results. When the form dipped, you still had to keep putting your best players on the pitch to ensure that you get some sort of a result. And the opportunity never arose for a player like Alan Obondo to actually showcase what he's made of. I'll ask you the question of whether there's a possibility that we can negotiate some sort of a loan again with, I believe, Atletico Madrid would be the club.
No. He's owned by Barcelona.
Guayaquil,
in Ecuador.
Because there was some rumors that he was loaned.
That wasn't a thing.
So maybe they can get another loaner, but I think you're right that he didn't enjoy his time at Inter Miami as such, and he's probably going to want a different opportunity somewhere else. So biggest what if, I think the biggest I think the biggest problem of Javier Mascherano's lack of experience came down to how he treated some of the younger players, and Obondo was a collateral damage for that. I will always wonder what he could have been for this team, because I think he could have been someone like a Segovia, like a Baltasar, like a Silvetti, and it's just unfortunate that it never came about.
I kind of expect him to go to like Belgium and like have 3 nice years there, and then all of a sudden he's at like Real Sociedad, and we're watching a Europa League game in 3 years, and we're like, is that Alan Obondo coming off the bench? What? So I still think he'll be good, but we'll see. Okay, so both of us, and you think the club will reject it or decline the option?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Now there's 2 more, and I think it starts to get a little more dicey. Let's start with Rocco Rios Novo. Here's what I'll say about Rocco, and this is something I want to be very clear about. Are there better goalkeepers out there than Rocco Rios Novo? I totally believe
Absolutely.
that. Totally believe that. But Rocco Rios Novo is going to be cheap, and he's not going to take up an international roster slot. And I have a feeling that you can win an MLS Cup with Rocco Rios Novo as your goalkeeper. Call me crazy. Call me crazy. But I think you can do that.
That's the funniest thing you've said on this podcast, hands down. I appreciate that witty sense of humor, Scotty. That was very well done. I feel like you planned that perfectly. You're right. I'll keep him. I would 100% keep him because I think there's a chance that in the future he has an MLS ring. Completely agree.
Yeah. Here's what I will say. I think the Rocco conversation is also tied in with Oscar Stadi. They have a non-American goalkeeper making a really healthy amount of money that is not going to be their starter next year, already confirmed to have a contract for next year. And I don't want to use a second international roster slot and another near TAM level amount of money to bring in another goalkeeper who is going to be maybe a slight upgrade on Rocco. Like I think it's out there that there's an upgrade on Rocco, but like I feel snake bitten by what they did with Ustadi, who again was so bad. And I stress this so much but you have a guy who is good enough to help you win an MLS Cup. And all you have to do is press send on the I accept this offer. And maybe I would feel differently if they didn't have Ustadi and they were going to use that roster slot and that cap space on the new goalkeeper, and then they could bring in a different young goalkeeper to serve as backup or rotation piece or whatever. But I think having Ustadi under contract for next year, that mistake of doing that so early before you had to makes me very nervous about the goalkeeping situation and going out and buying another one because A, your evaluations are not that good. And two, you already have an MLS Cup winning goalkeeper on your roster. So I would keep Rocco Rios Novo if I could, especially until the Oscar Ustari situation gets figured out. I think they're going to have to buy him out. But
Inter Miami's handling of the goalkeeping department has been baffling, and I don't expect it to improve anytime soon. I have a feeling they're probably going to let Oscar Stari go, who will retire. And I do think they're going to keep Rocco Rios Novo. A, he's proven that he can do it in the big moments. B, he's cheap. C, he doesn't take up an international roster slot. Even if you want to improve on him, you might actually bring in another goalkeeper who will fit to replace Oscar Stari. But I don't think you can replace somebody like Rocco. You can put him back into a second choice goalkeeper. But I think he's very...
question? Because Pepto writes something in the chat. He says, Rocco's too short. They will game plan against him next season. Can I ask, because I see a lot of this on Twitter, and I guess my question is, what is he too short for? Is he too short to win the MLS Cup?
No.
So what are we talking about here? Is he too short for the Leagues Cup? Because I remember him going 3-0 against Liga MX teams. So I don't think he's too short for CONCACAF, and including some penalties.
We played against Vancouver, and their goalkeeper is also 5'10". So I think there's a universe in which a 5'10" goalkeeper can definitely be fine and win you the MLS Cup.
This is my point. I feel snake bitten because last year they said, we're going to go get an upgrade on Drake Callender. And they screwed it up. They gave up a lot of money. They sacrificed like the best goalkeeper in club history. And they got worse because of it. And their decisions cost them the team the Supporter Shield this year. And here they have a 22-year-old American. And I say that because it means you won't need an international roster slot for him. That's like 22 and will only get better over the next 3 seasons that you can give an opportunity for. And guess what? He's already taken you to the mountaintop. So I think this is a no-brainer.
I won't disagree with anyone who says that you can improve on Rocco. Absolutely. He's a good goalkeeper. well, he's been great in the playoffs, but you can definitely get somebody better. But the value for money that you have, the other positions that you need to improve, I think you have to look at it holistically when you're building the roster. And that, for me, the fact that you have a proven goalkeeper who's sitting there, goalkeeping right now is not the priority option. And if you replace Rocco with somebody who's going to ask for more salary, take up an international roster slot, all of that, he needs to be an exponential upgrade on Rocco. And I don't think there's somebody out there right now. You build the other entire roster first and then figure out your goalkeeping situation, because I think that's the least of our concerns at this moment. I would, in fact, focus my energy on trying to get rid of Oscar Ustari and finding a replacement for him. That opens up a lot more possibilities. So, yes, you can improve on Rocco Rios Novo hands down, but I think at this point in time, this team needs somebody to needs other positions bolstered.
I also don't want to say hands down. He was in the
Yeah,
85th
yeah.
percentile in terms of his shot stopping numbers. Like, he's really good. And this, there's kid Guido Herrera, this guy Guido Herrera who's 33 that they're talking about. Like, he's a worse shot stopper over the last 12 months than Rocco Rios Novo. So, like, and I'm not saying he's not better at balls in the air. Like, I'm not saying overall he's a better goalkeeper. But my point is, like, I don't think you're going to get a guy that is exponentially better, that's not going to ask for a stupid amount of money. And you have the kid here that's already sort of, like, done it for you. I think they're going to go get another goalkeeper, and I think we're going to be talking about how it's a mistake for the next 12 months. And I also,
By the way,
I will again admit, I feel snake bitten about this management and front office and staff talking about and their goalkeeping decision. I will say, Octa in the chat says Nahuel Losada. I think Nahuel Losada is a much better goalkeeper than Guido Herrera or Rocco, and we could have that conversation. But that's not.
But then again, we thought that Rocco Rios Novo was going to be a third choice goalkeeper who's going to play in Inter Miami 2 for this entire time at the club. And what do we know? He just won us the MLS Cup. So we're just here chatting. Crap.
That's fair. Okay, I think this next one is going to be one of the most interesting conversations in. It's the last purchase option. It's the most interesting conversation I think we're going to have, and it's Baltasar Rodriguez. And I want to just lay a couple ground rules out. First of all, what we heard was that they had an option to buy for $6.5 million. And it was contingent on him playing 65% of games. He obviously didn't play 65% of games. I went and counted today. He's played about 20% of minutes that Inter Miami played over the course of the season. 20%. And I know it feels like more because he's played recently, but over the course of the time since we bought him, it's been about 20% of minutes. $6.5 million would make him a U22 slot, and you only get 3 of those. So you are capping your ability to go sign another young, talented player. But of course, if you do that, then the salary doesn't matter. He's just taking up one of those spots. So the question is, do you want Baltasar Rodriguez as one of your U22s moving forward? And then the last thing I will just say is, I have never had a player that I've watched at Inter Miami that I feel differently about than a lot of the fan base than compared to this player. So I wouldn't bring him back.
I'll be crucified for this, but I don't see it, man.
I don't either.
I don't see it. With Silvetti, you can see it. You can see it immediately that he upgrades the team. He brings it. Baltasar has glimpses, but nah, man. I think it also means that you're probably going to use Baltasar in the midfield, and I don't think he's it, man. He's not it.
So there's a couple other aspects to this that I haven't mentioned yet. I think the 4-4-2 was to satisfy Messi and Suarez. I don't think they're going to play a 4-4-2 next year without Suarez, who I guess we'll still talk about. But assuming Suarez is not around, I think they're going to play a 4-3-3, similar. What we played in the playoffs was still a 4-4-2, but it was more of a hybrid. It wasn't the strict role-based 4-4-2 we saw earlier in the season. And I think they're going to continue pushing towards a 4-3-3. And I want Messi on the right, and I want Matteo Silvetti on the left. And I don't think Baltasar Rodriguez is a midfielder. I really don't. And so you add that onto it, and I just don't I wouldn't buy him. I wouldn't.
I know people talk about his technical ability, him having the pace and his defensive work and all of that. You have to pay too much for all of that. And I think he's too similar to Silvetti, and Silvetti is a better player than Baltasar. It's as simple as that. I would rather have Segovia in the middle, especially in the midfield next year when you have Bright, Rodrigo de Paul, Segovia. You're not going to have to worry about the defensive work as much. And I don't see it, man. I don't see the hype that having him as a U22 would be.
I did the numbers today on Segovia versus Baltasar versus Segovia. When it was a very small sample size for Baltasar, he actually was outperforming Talasco Segovia in terms of his offensive impact. It's actually not the case anymore. It's Segovia is a better player in terms of creating goals and assists, in terms of XG, in terms of actual output, in terms of goal contributions. On a per 90 basis, Segovia is outperforming Baltasar. Segovia is much more of a natural midfielder, and so if you sit into a 4-3-3, I think
He's
Segovia
perfectly
is
suited
the better
to that.
answer.
Yeah.
And then if we're talking, and to be fair to Baltasar, I don't think he's a midfielder. So saying Segovia is a better midfielder than Baltasar, I don't think it's fair to Baltasar because I don't think that's where Baltasar is at his best. But then you put him in the Silvetti category, and I also think Silvetti's a better player. So I think you're talking about him being a role player next year, and I don't want to spend U22 spot
Exactly.
on a role player that I will again remind you had hamstring injuries all season and only played 20% of minutes. So I get it. People like Baltasar. People like Baltasar more than I do, and that includes Javier Mascherano. But I don't see it, and so I wouldn't buy him.
There was a thought that came to my mind about Baltasar Rodriguez, but it's just vanished. So probably we should move on. But I would agree with you. I don't see what other people see about Baltasar Rodriguez. I think he's eventually going to get displaced from this team. What I would ask you is, do you think he can put in a similar level of performance as Silvetti?
No.
In terms of his impact. I don't either. And there's way too much in terms of risk associated with this signing. It's his injury record, obviously, the money that you're going to spend on him, the U22 spot that he's going to take up. And I think you can do better with the replacement. If you're building a squad, I don't think Baltasar fits in this, and that's my opinion on this. But I agree, people will have a different opinion, and that's fine. And probably Javier Mascherano is going to try and keep Baltasar if it makes sense. So.
I also think Baltasar is I want to be clear. We don't think he's a bad player. He can clearly play on Inter Miami. This has more to do with the U22 spot than anything. And so I saw someone in the chat say they should try and loan him again. I would be totally happy to have him back on loan for the next season. The problem with that is he's 22 years old. So if you're going to buy him, you have to do it now because next year he won't be eligible for the U22 role, which means he'll be too expensive to buy as a non-DP anyway. So it's it is tough timing. I also want to say he played 1,081 minutes this year. I feel like he did get enough of a sample size for us to see what he's about. So
I don't think he's leaving, by the way. I think they're going to keep him.
So that was my next question. You think they're gonna do it?
Yeah, I think they're going to keep him.
I think they are too.
Yeah.
Okay.
By the way, we're going to get absolutely cooked for this opinion, and I'm all for it. That's what we're here for.
That's fine.
That's what we're here for.
So those are the purchase options. Those are the guys on loan that Inter Miami could just snap their fingers, trigger the option, and have on the team for next season. By the way, it's just I think Mascherano really likes him, and that's why we're going to keep Baltasar.
Yeah.
And I also remember spending the last 8 months talking about how I don't like his evaluation of players. So, I do think they're going to keep him because I think Mascherano likes him, and that's not an endorsement that carries a lot of weight for me. So,
and hopefully he'll improve, man. Who knows?
Yeah. Okay. I will also say, the injury thing is.
Yeah.
I hope they don't overlook that. Okay. Those are the 5 players. Snap their fingers. They could sign. The one that's going to be most difficult is Tadeo Allende, who they do not have a purchase option on. He was on loan from Celta Vigo. He's on a $1 million salary, and there's no loan option. And then he went out and scored 24 goals. Here's what I'll say. I think, without a doubt, he will have opportunities that will pay him more money than Inter Miami can pay him, or will be of a higher prestige than Inter Miami can offer. And so I don't think he's going to come back to Inter Miami regardless of price, because I think he's going to have better opportunities. Now, if he decides, I love it here, this is where I belong, I want to spend the next 4 years playing alongside Messi in this project, and that's the only place I'm going to go, and he goes back to Celta Vigo and he says, I'm not negotiating with anyone else, it's Miami, or I'll just rot here on the bench, I don't care, that's where I want to be. Maybe it could happen. I don't think the price tag from Celta Vigo is actually going to be prohibitive, if I'm being honest. They bought him for $2 million, and he's clearly not a part of their plan. So I think if they could get their money back, they would probably be happy with that. But I think Allende is going to have better options, and I think he's probably going to take them. So
I can't believe we're at a point where we know that Allende might be too expensive for us. That's insane. We'd be in a transfer battle to get Allende. I would sign him up if we could. I would definitely pull the guns, but I agree with you. It's going to come down to him. If he wants to stay at Inter Miami, he can make it work. But if there are other options that he has available, I think he's probably going to want to take them. He's still young. He has so much to prove. And he's going to want to capitalize on the season that he's had. So good for him for getting to this point, honestly. Because there was a time when we would have been like, yeah, get rid of him. And now we want him back. Like, I genuinely want him back. I think he's really good for this setup. And what he's done has been refreshing. So kudos to him for changing our opinions on him. I'll be the first one to raise my hand and say that I wouldn't have wanted him maybe 2 months ago. But the way he's improved our performances, the way he's contributed, and the impact that he's had, I would take him back in a heartbeat if it worked out financially.
Yeah,
because you have to replace 24 goals, and then we'll talk about Luis Suarez, but you lose 24 goals with Allende. That's a lot of goals. That's how many Sam Surridge almost scored in the MLS. So,
listen, if they sign a DP number 9 of real talent, and if they get it right, like, you would expect them to replace the 20-25 goals from that player.
And now, who's replacing Suarez then?
Yeah, I understand. It's multi. Well, you probably get those from Silvetti, right? So you can
34 goal contributions. That's so much pressure on a 19-year-old.
No, I
that's insane.
I get it.
Yeah,
I totally get it. I think this is about Allende. What does he want? And so,
yeah, that's a good point.
Like, if he wants to come back, I think they can make it happen. And if but I think he's going to get opportunities in Spain, in Argentina, in Germany, where, like, I think he will get better opportunities, or opportunities that we would consider more prestigious or more lucrative. And if he wants that, like, I think he's gone.
But he'll be such a good case study, though, right? A player who's sort of out of favor in Europe, comes and joins an Inter Miami team, does really well, and now we'll have options. So I think that will work for the brand Inter Miami is trying to build, but I don't know if that will work for us bringing back Allende. Oh, well.
Yeah. But like you, I would love to have him back if it could happen. Okay. So those are the guys on loan. One other player I wanted to mention, and I'm just going to throw this out there because it is not a name we have mentioned in a very long time. They have, for the last 2 seasons, loaned a player from Boca Juniors to the IMCF2 team. He's a center back named Giovanni Farina. I have never understood why they did this. I still do not understand why they did this. And the only explanation I can think of is that they felt like he would one day grow into a potential U22 center back. And so I'm just going to mention his name. Clearly, he never made a debut for the first team. I have no idea how he performed with the B team, but I've always felt it was weird. And the only explanation in my head is that they felt he could one day become a sort of player they would buy. And maybe that has happened. So I will just mention Giovanni Farina.
Didn't he captain the twos at some point?
I don't know. Okay, and then that leaves the free agents. And that is, let's start with Ryan Saylor, who I think is the easiest one. You need a player that is fifth choice center back to come in and play 150 minutes if you have an injury crisis, or just to do training the way you want to, or just to do like you just have to have that player. Can Tyler Hall fill that role? Maybe. I don't necessarily think we're going to see Ryan Saylor back, but I do kind of think they will have someone in that role.
Luhan.
What I will say,
Yeah.
Tyler Hall is 5'8" and quick and athletic, and Ryan Saylor is 6'4" and less quick and athletic. So very different profile players.
Yeah.
But maybe that is an opportunity for Tyler Hall to step into the first team. The point in saying this is that I think Ryan Saylor, who was an Inter Miami super draft pick, is probably going to go to the next phase of his career. And
You should also mention that Inter Miami does not need to make a decision on these players as of now.
correct. Yes, sorry. These three players, Saylor, Ian Frey, and Luis Suarez, they are free agents. So Inter Miami can try and re-sign them at any point over the next 15 years of their career if they want, right? So there's no decision to be made here, but just context that we're adding. The next one is Ian Frey, who is out of contract. I would be stunned if Inter Miami did not have contract negotiations with him this year, and we're not able to come up with a contract that everyone was happy with. That doesn't mean the money wasn't right. It could mean Ian Frey wants to go pursue opportunities in Europe, and I think he's earned the right to do that. We've heard a couple clubs, Belgium, the Netherlands, maybe in Germany, that would be interested in him. So I think he's going to take the next month, 6 weeks, see what is out there. And I think if he doesn't like what's out there, I think there is a potential return to Inter Miami available to him. I think that will be available to him. I kind of expect him to go do the European dream. And so I think we've seen the last of Ian Frey at Inter Miami, but I think the door will be open if he doesn't find the right situation this winter transfer window, right?
I think he has a contract from Inter Miami on the table, and he's probably looking for his options and understanding what's the best next step for his career. And that's perfectly fine. I think that's perfectly understandable. He's earned that. He's earned that right with the performances that he's put in. And he's going to have questions about whether he is going to be a starter at Inter Miami or not. Because if he stays, I assume he wants to be a starter. He eventually earned his place over the course of the season. And I think the next step for him makes sense to go to Europe. And if he's having offers from there, then it's perfectly fine for him to consider it. I think he's gone. I have a feeling he's going.
And he deserves that. So
he deserves it. Yeah.
Good luck. Shake hands, and I hope you make it into the Premier League. Like, honestly, I'm sad you're not going to be a USMNT player, and I think you would be if it wasn't for the injuries. But
do us a favor before you sign your next contract. Come on the podcast. We'd love to interview you.
The other thing I wanted to say about Ian Frey is they're about to sign a guy from Argentina at right back named Facundo Mura.
Yeah.
That's not the only way Ian Frey could be a starter on this team. Like, I think those two could both be on the roster, and Ian Frey was still getting starter minutes, whether that's at center back, whether that's in the midfield. We have kind of shuttled him into that right back spot over the last couple of years because that's been sort of the weak area for Inter Miami, and he's fit in and really been a sort of an X factor there. But he could play at center back. He could play in the midfield if we needed him to. So within those three positions, I think there's plenty of minutes for Ian Frey next year.
That's a good point.
If they want him. So just by the fact that they're bringing in Mura doesn't, I think, mean they are writing off Ian Frey. I think that's the cello replacement.
Yeah.
And then the last one is Luis Suarez, who is, we've heard in the last couple of days that he might be coming close to an agreement to return to Nacional in Uruguay. So I think Suarez is going to leave.
I think his time at Inter Miami's done.
Can I just say something? It feels like it's been a long time since Suarez was a huge part of this team. And it feels like the team has moved beyond him. And I agree with that. And I'm a big Suarez defender. And I will continue to defend Suarez. It's been 4 games since he was a starter. And it's been a month of real time. And so like I get that it's been a large number of days, but it's been 4 games since he was
In that
locked
time,
in.
we won the MLS Cup. So
True. And I'm not saying we didn't play better. Like I think we played better, and I'm not sure we would have done that with Suarez in the line. Like I'm not saying the team hasn't moved past, but it's been 4 games. If you told me 4 games ago that we were going to be saying we're fine, no, it's fine. Just bugger off.
I'll
Like,
try and
that's pretty crazy.
That's crazy. I'll try and contextualize this from how the team is thinking about it. I think there's a general understanding now that Suarez is not going to be a guaranteed starter for Inter Miami anymore. I think next season, let's assume Suarez stays on. It's not going to be like this season where he's going to get every single minute on the pitch. He is going to have to prove with his performances and goal contributions. That's a given fact. I don't think Suarez is averse to that, but I have a feeling that Inter Miami wants to sign a DP striker who will demand starting, and Suarez is going to have to compete for a starting spot. He's not going to immediately be Inter Miami's starter.
I don't think he's going to get it, period. I think they're going to sign a guy to be the striker.
Exactly. And that, for me, is where the line is drawn. And if Suarez is willing to resume that role and start as a second choice and then compete, then I think, sure, keep him. Absolutely. If he's going to be a professional about it like he has been over the last month and a half, then keep him. But I don't think that's where Suarez's head is at. I think he wants to finish his career on a high. He's accepted the situation at Inter Miami. He's behaved admirably and professionally. But I think that's it. He was only willing to do it because Inter Miami was winning and because Inter Miami won the MLS Cup. Now, next season, if he stays, it was 4 games.
It was 4 games. It wasn't like it was half a season. Yeah.
And if it's next season and it's like 15 games in, Inter Miami is on like a downward sort of form and Suarez is still not getting minutes, he's going to throw a fuss. We know his personality. He's going to throw a fuss. He's going to demand playing time. And I don't think that's good for the club. I don't think that's good for Suarez. And just generally speaking, I think he's on a point in his career where he wants to end on a high. So for me, I think it's time for him to go. And he will probably move on to the final step in his career, which is, I believe, finish his career off in Nacional.
I do want to say I was doing the numbers today. Over the last 2 years since he signed, there's only 3 players, MLS players, that have more goal contributions than Luis Suarez. And that's Messi, it's Denny Bouanga, and it's Evander. So, like, I get people are frustrated with Suarez. Like, he's still a good player. He had 34 contributions. Yeah. And by the way, he had 37 last year. And I know the per 90 numbers are down, but it's not like a drastic decrease in his output this season, even though it may have felt like it. I think this is more about the direction Miami is going in terms of play style and where they can go with some of the young and athletic pieces. And I also think this is tied to Busquets and Alba leaving, where you had to play a certain style with Suarez on the field, but you also had to play a similar style with Busquets on the field and with Alba on the field. So it was like, it wasn't just accommodating Suarez, it was accommodating all of them. And now that they're all moving on, it really does free you up to play.
And you can evolve into that step. You don't want to hinder yourself by impeding that style of play.
Also, he was kind of a...
His performance was fine. His behavior off the field was not great.
And sometimes his behavior on the field, not great. So, like, that is a part of it. But
yes,
as a soccer player, I still think he's a really good, competent, high-level, effective soccer player. But I also think maybe it's time. Okay, that is the decision. That is the decisions. I also, maybe we should talk about this for a minute. Lionel Messi will be here next year.
Thank
Matteo
God.
Silvetti. Yeah. Matteo Silvetti will be here next year. Telasco Segovia, I think there will be a market for him. It's probably not as hot as it was this past summer, and it's probably not as hot as it will be next summer. So I kind of expect him to stay at least until the summer. But I don't think that's guaranteed.
I agree with you, but I think he's going to eventually start in this midfield. So
I think that's also part of it. If he's not promised a starting role, and
He's
he
not gonna
deserves a
stay.
starting role,
Yeah.
by the way, just to be clear, he deserves a starting role. He is such a talent. Then I think he might leave. So I think that's on the table this winter as well.
And for anyone who says he's defensively lackadaisical, doesn't have the legs, he plays for Venezuela in one of the toughest conferences in the world. And he's a baller for that team. So
He also played in a midfield too in the
Yeah.
Portuguese league. That's
Yeah.
I will just say pet peeve of mine. Baltasar Rodriguez is a worse defender than Telasco Segovia. He is quicker. He is more. Baltasar is quicker and more explosive. He is way worse technically, and Telasco Segovia is not that bad. That is a pet peeve of mine.
I think it's a misnomer for sure. And that's going to change next season when he's playing next to Brighton RDP, by the way.
Yes, these two actually. Just speaking of Baltasar and Telasco Segovia, both of them were sort of shunted into this weird, archaic,
Wide role.
left-sided midfield role,
Yeah.
which is not, that's
Play
not
them
what any
central.
of them are best at. So, it will be interesting to see what they look like when they get into a different situation. Yannick Bright just signed a new contract. I do think he has a future in Europe, but I don't think it's going to be in the immediate term.
Yeah, I agree. I think he stays for now.
David Ruiz, homegrown player. I actually think if he was fully healthy, there was a chance he was going to leave in the summer. I think there's a chance he's not back next year. I don't think Javier Mascherano has a ton of faith in him, but maybe that is unfair to say because he did have some gruesome injuries this season that kept him out. So maybe back, maybe not. I don't think it affects the overall situation a ton because he's in the non-roster category because he's a homegrown. So something to mention. Toto Aviles, also a U22 player.
I think he's gone.
I think he's gone too, which would open up a U22 spot for Baltasar. Shame because I think he's talented, but
Yeah.
Maxi Falcone will be back. Gonzalo Lujan. Gonzalo Lujan's making a lot of money, and he's got a big cap hit, and certainly does not jive with the performance we saw from him. I think he will be back. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets Emerson Rodriguez. And I think if there was a coaching change, which I'm not expecting, but if there was, he would definitely get Emerson Rodriguez. I think him being on this team is entirely dependent on Javier Mascherano continuing to be the coach and also vouching for him, which I'm not sure is a guarantee.
By the way, if we start our season with Gonzalo Lujan as a centre-back starter, I'm going to go on a tirade for the first 15 minutes of that first episode of the first game that we play next season. No, never again.
Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of Javier Mascherano's evaluations of players. And Noah Allen, also under contract for next season, got the new contract. He's another player I could see maybe we having a different conversation next summer, next winter, but I think for going into next season, he'll be back.
Yeah.
Oscar Ustari, as we've already mentioned, under contract. I could see them buying him out. I don't think he's going to retire because why would you if you have money coming your way? But I could see them using their buyout on him, especially if it's a big deal. Because again, you just can't be having a backup goalkeeper taking up an international
slot. Yeah,
it's so dumb. It's
so dumb. By the way, Pep just mentioned in the chat, give us a healthy David Martinez. David Martinez should get a ring as well, right?
Yeah.
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 He should get a ring as well. Damn. That feels like a whole other lifetime
Dude,
ago when David
Robert
Martinez,
Taylor,
Robert
Julian
Taylor, Leo
Gressel. I don't know
Campana.
Julian Gressel because he didn't play any minutes, but
Yeah.
not Campana.
Campana, maybe?
No.
No.
And then Santi Morales, Israel Boatwright, and Tyler Hall. All of them are under contract. No player options to be had there, so they should all be back. So what do you think? There's a bunch, by the way. There's a bunch of questions in the chat, and a lot of chats I haven't even read yet. So I want to dedicate 10
We
minutes
will
to
go,
kind
yeah.
of going through them. But I guess final thought, or like how did the overall picture look? They have a lot of business to do. It seems.
Lot of business to do, man. It's always like this with MLS because there's so much turnover. There's so many decisions that need to be made. Financially, you have to make things work. It's going to be an interesting off season, and we don't have that much time. Last season, they made a lot of mistakes, which I think are going to hurt them this off season as well. They ended up winning an MLS Cup regardless, which is fine. So maybe we should give them a bit of grace. But I think they have to get some decisions absolutely spot on, starting with the goalkeeper, the striker situation, the midfield. There's so many options that they can get wrong and that can hurt us over the course of the season. So I hope they've done their due diligence and know exactly what they want to do. I don't care whether it's what we want them to do, but at least they have an idea of how they want to approach this. Because last season, especially with the goalkeeping situation, that was, I think, the perfect example. It was such a mess, and it can't be like that. So I hope they know what they want to do because, as you said, a lot of business to be done.
Kareem with a super sticker. Thank you for that. That's so kind.
It's been a while since we've seen you in the chat, Kareem. Good to have you back.
For my money, he was our first ever viewer.
Yeah.
I feel like I've said everything I want to say, so I'll get back to some of the chats. Pepto said this earlier, and I just had to make it come up with it. That the only reason Messi's signing a new contract and is going to continue to work hard to be a star is because he hasn't gotten that Olympico yet.
If you ask Taylor Twellman,
he might be in trouble.
I love how in the 90th minute of the final of the MLS Cup, Taylor Twellman's one go-to line is, "Look out for the Olympico," when Messi's on a corner. My man, you need to find some new notes, man. You really do.
Yeah, I just had to bring that one up. Sean says, do you think that any of the IMCF2 kids are going to get a fair shot next season? I don't.
I haven't seen enough of them, but knowing Javier Mascherano, probably not. Well, he did give Daniel Pinter some run outs, so that's... I don't think they'll get like a
next episode,
sustained run of form.
Next episode, we're going to sort of mock up what we want or think the roster could or should look like. And so we'll have some conversations about where is there 200 minutes for a backup striker or backup center back or whatever, and we'll do that next time. But this team, it needs a lot of players because even the guys that are under contract, I think there's only 3 that I feel 100% are going to be here for the entirety of 2026, which is crazy. Messi, Silvetti, and Maxi Falcone are the only 3 players I am confident will be here throughout 2026. Sean says that third midfield battle between Baltasar, Segovia, and Benjamin Kremaski. And then Kareem says, do you see Crema coming back to Miami next summer?
Yeah, and then going away again.
I think they're going to sign a midfielder.
I think so. Whether it's Baltasar, I don't know. But
no, I think they're going to sign a midfielder.
Another one?
Mm-hmm.
Oof. I
think if you...
I think you're right.
But let me just paint this picture.
Want them to.
Let me just paint this picture. Yannick Bright, Rodrigo DePaul, new midfielder, Telasco Segovia, 4 midfielders for 3 spots on a sort of rotational basis where all of them are going to play every game. If one comes off the bench for 30 minutes, hopefully that role rotates so that like everyone gets a ton of minutes. And then you get Silvetti and Baltasar rotating as your left-sided winger. Messi at the right side, and then the backup to Messi would be Silvetti or Baltasar going to the other side, and then you get your number 9. Like, that is a lot of talent, I think, for the front 6.
What if we stick to a 2-man midfield and don't revert to a 4-4-3-3?
I can't imagine it.
Well, we just played that entire season.
But honestly, I think Javier Mascherano was told on day one, Messi and Suarez play a front two. Told is maybe strong, but like he came to the team and Messi and Suarez were like, we want to play as a front two. And we tried the 3-5-2 last year and it didn't work, so figure something else out. I would be really surprised if we stick with this 4-4-2 that we saw.
I'm excited for the preseason.
Evolve and become more
Yeah.
aggressive over the course of the season. Octi asked a really good question. Can you guys talk about how the bonuses we get for winning affects our salary decisions? For those that don't know, last year the LA Galaxy won the MLS Cup, and all of their players were given higher salaries as part of their contracts as a reward for winning the MLS Cup, which put them in cap hell. They had to sell a bunch of their players because they didn't have any allocation money to sort of keep the roster together. So a bunch of their mid-level players had to get moved on in order to satisfy the cap restrictions. And then when Ricky Puig got hurt, their season was over because they lost that middle part of their roster, and then their star was also not there, and then they just fell apart and had a terrible year. So
Yeah.
that happened. What I will say is Inter Miami doesn't have a ton of guys returning on contracts that will be affected by that. Messi is a DP, so it won't matter. Silvetti, Segovia, Toto Aviles are DPs, are U22, so it won't matter. So the only 5 guys it could matter for are Yannick Bright, Maxi Falcone, Gonzalo Luján, Noah Allen, and Oscar Ustari. And then all these other players that we're talking about buying them or whatever, their contracts will start after the MLS Cup win, so they won't get the bonus. So Miami's actually in a good position to not be affected too much by that.
Yeah, I hope so.
I should also mention Inter Miami's going to be a little bit tougher this season in terms of fitting guys within the salary structure. 2025 was the golden year for Inter Miami in terms of allocation money. They got a bunch of money from the Diego Gomez sale. They got a bunch of money from being in the Club World Cup that they're not getting. They're getting a bunch of money from being in the CONCACAF Champions Cup that will be sort of reduced as you continue to go through it. And they also had Suarez, who is still a good player and for a TAM money is a great player, or is a great value, rather. Under contract, you still had Busquets and Suarez, Jordi Alba. Like 2025 was the year to maximize what this roster could be. Thank God they got an MLS Cup, but I still don't know if it's conversation for another day. But my point being, next year they won't have quite the same flexibility because of things like not being in the Club World Cup.
Yeah.
So decisions. We're going to get on the pod later this week, and I think we're going to play a little bingo. How does that sound, Saur?
That sounds fantastic because as the reigning champion, I think it's only fair that I give you another opportunity to redeem yourself. And I'll be honest, man, I'm going for that twofer. I'm going for the back-to-back, so you better be prepared.
Kareem gives a super chat, and thank you again. Says, Dry Pink Dialogue will be the #1 ranked pod in the world. I just hope it's the #1 ranked pod in my apartment, and that would satisfy me. Last season, what we did is we mapped out all of the decisions from the offseason or for the offseason and where they needed a new right back or new striker or new central midfielder, or are they going to sign this kid? They're going to let go of that kid. We created a bingo card each, and then we watched as things happened over the offseason, and when they happened, we kind of got a letter. And Saur is the defending champion, so congratulations. I think your prize was getting to go first in terms of who gets to give hand in the match for the first game. But we're going to do that again later this week, whether it's Wednesday, Thursday, maybe Friday. Now that it's the off season, we're going to do 2 episodes a week, and then emergency episodes as they sort of come to us or as news happens. But that's the plan. So next episode, we'll talk more about the new signings, what we expect to happen, what we think will happen, what we would do. over the course of the season. But for right now, these roster decisions were due today. We needed to talk about it. Or I'm sorry, they were due yesterday. We haven't heard about it yet, but we wanted to preview it a little bit. So,
and knowing into Miami, this entire conversation is going to become redundant because they're going to keep throwing curveballs at us with the decisions that they make. So maybe we jump on again very soon, tomorrow, day after, to actually discuss what they've done, because we might be completely wrong.
Last year, there were a couple surprises.
Yeah.
We didn't think they would bring Chelo Wegon back after Tata Martino left, and they did. We thought they would bring back Matias Rojas, and they didn't. So, yeah, curveballs, I think, are totally reasonable.
And Cello might just be like a cockroach in a nuclear holocaust, man. He just keeps surviving. Who knows?
There's no way.
Okay, Scotty, I have to. If he comes back, what does that mean for us? What's the point of all of this? What are you going to do?
It means we celebrate that MLS Cup even harder because
it's never happening again.
No, I mean, I think like I think Alan Obando being brought back would be pretty surprising, but maybe there is a world where that happens. I think Baltasar not getting re-signed would surprise me. I know I don't think they should bring him back, but I think they will. It would surprise me if they didn't. So Rocco, I think there's a real chance they don't bring back Rocco.
That would actually surprise me, I think. I think they're going to bring back Rocco. I don't know. I need these decisions, man. The uncertainty is killing me.
I mean, there's rumors about other goalkeepers. And again,
true.
Oscar Stadi on the roster for next year, and we said it as soon as they gave him the contract, that was dumb to do it so early. You're kind of, are you going to spend money on a third goalkeeper? Not that he would be third in the pecking order, but you have three goalkeepers already.
Here's what I'm thinking. I think it's going to be Ustari that they're going to get rid of and buy out. And that's who the new goalkeeper is going to be replacing. That's my assumption in my head. Now, granted, I'm not very smart, so maybe that's completely wrong. But who knows?
And before anyone yells at us about Baltasar or Obando or whoever in the comment section, we'll always remind you, I'm just a knucklehead and he's just a bozo.
Bozo 1, knucklehead number 2.
Yeah. Saur, any final thoughts before we head out for the week or for the
No, it's a shame that we've moved on from the MLS Cup. So let us remind ourselves. You see that little icon between our two knucklehead and bozo heads? That's Inter Miami being MLS Cup champions for the year 2025. And every episode in the off season, I'm going to remind you that so that we don't forget it. But that also means we have the year coming up. And we have to prepare for the next season to defend our title. And that starts with the roster decisions. And I'm excited to see what Inter Miami does because there's a lot of business to be done, Scotty. So I hope they do it soon. And I hope they do it well. But it's going to be a fun ride.
Just a teaser for next episode. Javier Mascherano Jorge Mas had some banger quotes after the game about bringing in new players, about their goal for next season is all about winning the CONCACAF Champions. Like, he had some awesome quotes, and we will be talking about them next time. But we wanted to focus on the options and what they should do today. So that'll do it, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, it's a pleasure, and it was a wonderful season. And everyone that left comments, there were some incredibly kind comments, so thank you for that. And I will also say one of our goals for this winter is to be better about responding to the comments because we read them, but we are bad about responding, and that is terrible on us. But we do always appreciate them. So thank you guys so much for paying attention, watching, and we will see you guys next time. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this and have a wonderful day.